Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of, this time, Adobe Photoshop 6.0. Now this is very old, very old, but I love manuals of software. It's weird, I quite often pick them up. I don't keep them always for too long, but I've still got this application and I still have it running on my Windows machine. So it's really nice. And I bought it for 50p. This was at a local market. I thought, well, it's fallen to pieces, it's got a nice tatty, it's got the old broken. It's obviously been well thumbed over the years, but what a great book. And the thing is, I love online videos. I mean, I do lots of online videos myself, YouTube, ones on Photoshop, Illustrator, and many others. But I do love an old book, going through these things, and quite often you learn a lot about the software. Obviously, I'm using the latest version, Photoshop 2021, and it's still very informative in terms of you think, oh right, that's what that's called. Whereas before there's references in here, lots of things like palettes. I think they're more called panels now, probably called something else. I have no idea. But anyway, I think they're called panels. They keep changing their mind what it's going to be called. But you've got a little bit of references to use Adobe Online. So you've got sort of references to this sort of image or web resources. So you've got here about US homepage. Well, obviously, for me, it's the UK one. But you've got tooltips, you've got Adobe Online, you've got also other learning resources, classroom in a book. You've got Adobe Electronic Publishing Guide, Adobe Certification Program, Customer Support. You've got just great information like that. But also I love about old books, and I often pick these up. Windows 2.0, Windows 3.0, books like that. And you think, wow, just reading about the old ways of these things were done, not that long ago, 1990s. And you just think, certainly, obviously, the things that were key interest, obviously, at the time, masks, layers, much the same now. You've got no mention, of course, to smart objects and all those sort of things, smart adjustments or whatever you want to call them. So you've got painting and drawing, obviously, and also the tool set is slightly different as well. Brushes, obviously, are slightly different now as well. I mean, the brush but saying that, brush settings, I'm certain, I don't know, it's got here, you've got normal, opacity, brush. I don't know if there is actually brush settings that came into this by this point. Expanding beyond pixels. I think this was quite an early stage of putting like vector technology. So you had custom shapes and those things. I loved custom shapes. I still love custom shapes. I use custom shapes now. Mastering Photoshop more quickly. And that's the key thing. Presets. You've got all these lovely annotations. Audio annotation tools. Let you attach text and voice comments to images. You know what I've never done? Voice annotations at all for any of my images. That's something to investigate now. I wonder if that still exists. Notes definitely do. But annotations? Nope. Pop-up sliders and all those sort of references to things sometimes that you would not find online. I mean, quite often when I do my YouTube videos, often mention these things. I mention it not just casually. I just don't give any thought to it. And yet, there's a lot of stuff here giving detail about things you think, okay, layer options, show option buttons, choose edit, all the various things. You think, obviously about restoring parts of the image. History brushes. See, history brushes were in. I love the history brush, as well as art history brush. Duplicating images. Getting images into Photoshop in Image Ready. Image Ready. Never use the application. It's one of those applications I put it installed. Probably still got it installed because I got, like I say, with Photoshop 6. But I've never used it at all. It's one of those managing files with WebDAV. Never used that at all. I'm quite certain I didn't. Photoshop Colour, and this is the thing I love about this, just the references to things that I think, but audio annotations, must investigate. So I've got sniffles. It's an early morning sniffle, been out already early down the market, and this is where I got the book, down my local market. Love it, but sometimes you go out too early and you end up getting a bit sniffly. Softening the edges of a selection, all useful stuff. Extracting objects from background, Photoshop, and there's lots of text, and maybe sometimes YouTube videos are actually better for these things, but I think actually sometimes you get a lot of background information that you might not find from a video, because you wouldn't talk about for brush size, blah, 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 into value, drag the slider, specify it, and they would go into sort of, for highlight, choose. I don't think anyone would be remotely interested. You sort of like, that would take a long time to discuss. But books like this really bring in this, drawing shapes and paths. So you've got loads of information about drawing, painting, selecting paths, colour, deleting channels. There's a whole massive section about merging channels, splitting channels. Again, channels are one of my favourite subjects. I love channels. And it really gets not very much, I don't think, as much mentioned. So it's one of those things it's quite temporary masks, storing mask and alpha channels, grouping layers. I've got good old my device beeping at me. It refuses to give up. It will let me keep telling me there's obviously a notification, but I'm not interested. So using type, creating type, just excellent. Of course, actually, to be honest, a lot of that type stuff, warping type, creating work path from type, baseline shifts. See, many things are still referenced now, still important now, when it gives information, background detail about them that you might not always gather from, selecting, modifying slices, resizing, creating animations. I love animations. Image ready, well, obviously now in Photoshop more than any. I love that sort of stuff. Choosing file formats, optimization, color reduction algorithms, all those sort of very nerdy sort of things, but a very useful thing if you want to reduce things and do things, generating color tables, making transparent massive images. Just information. I think that, it's good to read these sort of things as well. And there's obviously references occasionally to things that don't exist anymore, which I love this one. Tile Maker filter. Tile Maker filter. I use that quite a lot. Okay, it's been superseded a bit now, but it's still Maker to create a kaleidoscope, get it right, that word, kaleidoscopic background. See that? Why isn't that in there now? I would love a kaleidoscopic feature. Now, of course, other applications have got that. Comes to mind, Infinity Photo, etc. But Photoshop does not have that. Not in the way that I remember with this feature, and I would love to see that. File extensions, saving files, EPS, DCS, adding digital copyright information. And you got here about screen attributes, printing duotones, actions, just heaps of stuff of information that is still very relevant now. And people might think, I don't understand this. Well, these books are just great sources of information, droplets. And also, of course, even better, an index. I love indexes. I would put an index in comic book. If I ever brought out a comic book, which I won't, but maybe I will. If I did, I would have to put an index in it. I'd put page 5, there was like Dr. Doom or whatever. Imagine doing that in Marvel Comics, in a Marvel comic. Dr. Doom, panel 3, page 5, panel 6. I love that sort of information. I wish they would put that. Just a one-page sort of index at the back, especially when you get to these omnibus editions. Omnibus editions are missing a massive thing. I think put an index, because you quite often you go to back and you think, where did Doctor Doom or XYZ appear? When did that happen? When did that word get used or something? Some information you want to know, the Infinity Gauntlet. And you can find it from an index because it says here page 143, 149, 150, tells you, and you can then quickly turn to the page. Sometimes books nowadays don't even put page numbering. And frankly, I just think that's just so annoying. Though I can understand in terms of some omnibus editions where the pages are bleeding all the way to the edge, that it might ruin it a bit. But certainly when you've got some where you could put a little bit of page numbering, maybe every 20 pages or 10 pages, just so you give a bit of a where you are in the book, and an index, and contents. I love, even better, worse, is contents ones, where they put contents and then they don't put page numbering. So they put contents where the page numbering, and then they put page numbering. Why? What's the point? Why put page numbering if you don't going to put page numbering? This one has page numbering. That's just standard moan I have with books. And also production notes. And that is a key thing. I love, in any book, massive production notes. Everyone and anyone that's been involved in a book, you've got production notes where you've got all the credits, obviously where the stock comes from. Because quite often you think, where did that come from? Page 13, picture of Hawaii. Maybe you want something about Hawaii. And you've seen a picture in it and you think, that's a pretty good picture. Page 13, Hawaii. You can go and find that. Go and look on that stock site, definitive stock. And all the people, Julian Cost, Michael Dosef, and so on and so on. And this is just great. Obviously, it's all in black and white, this book. There's no colour, of course, but it's still an absolute goldmine reference. And quite often these books, I think, are all, and maybe they're not. I don't know. I know over the years I have been very bad. Just throw them away. Whenever I get a new version, I had loads of these things. Would go in the bin-ish, or down to my local charity shop. Never put them in bins. Books in bins are terrible. But charity shops, whenever I say bin, I mean charity shop. It could have been the bin, depending how bad and battered, because sometimes you look at it and think, there's some books you just think, you can't really take that. You scrawled over it. And quite often these books, if one of the sort of things with books, I would write over. I'd put notes and things, and I don't think that's really something that I want to give to a charity shop. So it's, and maybe not everyone's interested in this sort of stuff, but I love this. I really genuinely love these books, and I do regret getting rid of quite a few of these books over the years, and this one is quite genuinely quite good. Photoshop 6.0, and as I say, I've still got the application, still running, still going strong on my Windows machine, and Adobe Photoshop 6.0 manual, user guide I should say, not manual, user guide, manual, documentation, brilliant. I mean, I would love Vax VMS manuals. There were these big orange manuals you used to get. Vax VMS, that was my first system I really worked on. And I loved those books. If I saw those down the market, I'd probably pick up a couple of those as well. I think, that'd be nice to look back at sort of, or Windows 1.0 or something. You think, that'd be interesting. Just fascinating. Nice history of sort of an industry that I work in over the years. And it's always fascinating to look at. So Adobe Photoshop 6.0, absolutely brilliant user guide, worth checking out these sort of books.